Forget textbooks. We found a cheat code for Korean fluency, and it's hidden inside the velvety harmonies of the legendary duet Sunflower.
That's right.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take your sources and turn them into instant expertise. Today, we're swapping out the flashcards for the sweet sounds of Haeburagi, exploring a really fascinating approach to language learning.
Yeah, our mission today is to look at sources that champion this very specific strategy, using these really emotionally resonant Korean songs.
Like those from Sunflower.
Exactly. And not just for passive listening, but as a direct shortcut to, cultural fluency and a deeper emotional connection to the language.
Okay, let's unpack the strategy because it's so much more than just hitting shuffle on a playlist.
Right.
The sources recommend making this a daily thing, reviewing one song every morning, and focusing not just on the words, but on the meaning and the specific emotion being conveyed.
And that focus is so key. I mean, when you link a new word to a powerful emotion like gratitude or joy, you cement it in your memory way better than just reading it off a list.
So you get new expressions, new vocabulary,
An immediate grasp of how native speakers talk about their inner world.
and the consensus across all the sources is just overwhelming. If you're going to start this journey, you start with Sunflower, Haeburagi.
They are the absolute #1 recommendation. They're celebrated for their smooth, warm, comfortable voices. Their rhythm is described as just incredibly easy and soft,
So even if you're not a Korean speaker, you can still follow the melody.
effortlessly. Which brings us to the obvious question.
Why them? I mean, why are they the perfect study tool? Most learners today start with, fast-paced K-pop. Why are we going with this gentle duet?
Well, it really comes down to two things: the acoustics and the emotional content. You mentioned K-pop, that rapid-fire delivery can be so overwhelming for a beginner.
Right.
But because Sunflower sings so softly, so deliberately, the pace of the speech in the song just slows right down.
So you can actually distinguish the syllables.
You can hear individual syllables, connection words, all of it. It's effective pronunciation training just disguised as easy listening.
So that soft cadence is basically slowing the language down for us. That makes total sense. But beyond the technical side, the content itself seems perfectly tailored for learning.
It absolutely is. Sunflower songs aren't about, abstract ideas or passing trends. They focus on these foundational themes that are just deeply embedded in the Korean mindset.
Things like,
We're talking universal concepts: love, happiness, and the importance of good relationships with family, with friends, with lovers.
so by listening to their songs, you're not just learning words, you're getting this insight into the core values that underpin everyday Korean sentiment.
Exactly. You're learning what Koreans value and how they express affection. It gives you immediate cultural context.
And for anyone listening who wants to jump right in, how do they find the music?
Oh, it's easy. Just search Sunflower or Haeburagi on YouTube or any big streaming platform. They're classics.
And crucially, the sources say if you're a beginner, don't let the vocabulary scare you.
That's vital. I mean, please use the tools you have. Use AI, use a simple translator to get the gist of the lyrics first.
Don't try to look up every single word.
No, don't. The content creators we looked at even said they use AI all the time for their own language learning. The goal here is connection, not tedious dictionary work.
That sets the stage beautifully. But to really get the depth of these lyrics, we have to understand where they came from. Sunflower isn't just a band, they're cultural touchstones.
That's right.
So let's dive into the history of this harmony, because this group gives us a view of, 3 decades of Korean cultural evolution?
At least. I mean, Sunflower began their career in the late 1970s. That immediately puts them in a very specific cultural timeline.
They're one of the groups that really shaped Korean pop music through the 80s and 90s.
Absolutely. They became synonymous with that warm, comforting harmony and those really emotional songs, all during a period of intense national change.
So the sources are saying this isn't just pop music, it's a window into recent Korean social and emotional history.
Precisely. And the sources synthesize their evolution brilliantly into 3 distinct phases.
Okay, tell us about that first period, the beginning.
So, the early phase. This is the late 1970s, early 1980s. It was characterized by this classic Korean folk sound.
Right, the folk boom.
Exactly. It was tied directly to that movement. Musically, it was often acoustic, a little bit raw, and the themes centered on things like freedom, self-discovery, and nature.
Which is significant. I mean, when you talk about a folk movement, you're not just talking about a genre, you're talking about a cultural yearning for expression.
Absolutely. The music created a space for reflection. For a language learner, those early lyrics give you this pure, almost idealized vocabulary that's tied to Korean literary tradition. It's a very clean, historically important way of speaking.
And then things shift dramatically. We move into the middle phase, the 80s and 90s. This is when they really blew up.
This was their harmonized ballad period. They adopted a much lusher sound, leaning heavily into their signature tight harmonies.
And the music moved away from those bigger social themes.
Completely. It focused almost entirely on emotional, interpersonal relationships. And this is where their biggest, most enduring hits came from, the songs that are now considered classics.
Right. Songs like We Love and the one we're about to dissect, The One Who Gives Me Happiness.
Correct. Those songs dominated radio and TV. I mean, they defined the emotional texture of the 90s. When you listen to this music, you are tapping directly into the communal memory of an entire generation.
So these were the songs at weddings, at family gatherings.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That context is so important. It gives a learner this shared emotional vocabulary they can use with older generations. It connects what you learn in a classroom to real lived experience.
And then that brings us to the late phase, from the 2000s onwards.
Yeah, this period shifted more toward concerts and cover performances.
And this is what the sources call memory music.
Exactly. They're beloved by the generation that grew up in the 80s and 90s. But what's fascinating for a learner is that their music is still widely listened to by younger generations.
Wait, okay, hold on. If this is memory music for older Koreans, why is it still relevant to a student today who's maybe learning because of, modern K-pop?
Because culture is cyclical. Understanding the music your parents or grandparents loved gives you conversational currency. And more than that, Sunflower's ballads really established the blueprint for emotional depth in modern Korean music.
Ah, so you can hear echoes of their style even in contemporary tracks.
You absolutely can. Listening to Sunflower provides the historical foundation. It connects that folk revival vocabulary to the 90s ballad sentiment. You get the full spectrum of expression.
That's a phenomenal framework. Okay, let's take that context and apply it to the jewel in their crown, the song recommended most for learners.
The One Who Gives Me Happiness.
This song is a masterclass. At its core, it's just this powerful expression of profound gratitude and deep, sustained affection.
The lyrics describe how just the existence of one person can bring warmth and meaning to your whole life. Yeah, and the relationship is so reciprocal. The summary in the sources is just beautiful. When I am tired of struggle, I want to give happiness back to that person because they already give me happiness.
It's not selfish. It's rooted in this grateful service.
And this is where we get to the real aha moment for a learner, the linguistic nuance, the language in the song. It's high register.
It sounds very formal, almost poetic.
It is. The sources note that it's written-based language, the kind of tone you'd use in a love letter or a formal speech, not in a coffee shop with friends.
So we're not learning how to order food, we're learning how to express timeless, profound respect.
Yes, and that exposes you to this elevated vocabulary and grammar that signals maturity and deep respect. It's essential for understanding literature or formal relationships in Korea.
Okay, now let's get to the most fascinating detail the sources highlighted, the one that totally flips the meaning of a simple word. The use of today.
This is a crucial subtlety. In this very specific, affectionate written context, the word today, or the phrase that translates as such, it indirectly means you. It functions as a tender, poetic substitute for a direct pronoun.
So why not just say you? Why the substitution?
It's an expression of reverence. Direct pronouns in Korean, especially in these kinds of contexts, can sometimes feel too blunt or casual. By swapping the person with a concept like today, the speaker elevates them. They're saying, you are the reason my life exists in this present moment.
Wow. So it lets lovers address each other tenderly without worrying about age differences or formal terms.
Exactly. So when a line talks about gaining strength from today, it really means gaining strength from the existence of the person you're singing to.
That's incredible.
Yeah, the Course provides this beautiful paraphrase. When I think of you, my heart becomes warm. And because you exist, I gain the strength to live today. Today here equals the presence of the beloved person. Without you, there is no today worth living.
That is the kind of detail that makes language learning stick, that lets you access a level of communication that's so far beyond a dictionary.
Understanding that poetic substitution shows you how Koreans express deep, formal sentiment. It's an immediate cultural insight into emotional etiquette.
This has been a true deep dive. I mean, we've covered a unique daily learning strategy, the history of a musical group, and dissected the profound complexity inside a single word.
And the value here for you, the learner, is huge. Sunflower gives you accessible, slow-paced language practice combined with a comprehensive view of modern Korean music history,
From the folk revival to the 90s ballads.
all steeped in this deep emotional context that connects words directly to feelings and cultural memory.
We wholeheartedly encourage you to try integrating the Sunflower Duet into your routine. Find the one who gives me happiness, use your translator, and just pay attention to how that emotion is built.
And finally, a provocative thought for you to chew on. Since Sunflower's music is such a clear window into Korean culture across generations, what other genres, maybe traditional opera like pansori, or even the most complex, hyper-contemporary K-pop, might unlock an even deeper understanding of that Korean feeling and history that goes way beyond the classroom?
What unique parts of the Korean language are preserved in those different rhythmic containers? That sounds like the start of a whole new deep dive. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.